Hello, Meoni here, and welcome back to another video. This time I'm looking at something a bit different. We're looking at the lucky Bancho data. If you're not familiar with what this is, basically this is essentially an unofficial census of all of the characters that exist. Now, for the first time ever in this current time period, we're up to an active worldwide character list of 1,100,000 characters. Now, that's not accounts, that's individual characters. And the prerequisites on this census for that specific data being allocated as an active character, the player must be level 36 or higher in their lodestone character search or their limited job character. Their level and experience points have changed since their last survey, which was obviously the previous expansion, and since the last survey the number of minions and mounts has changed. Other data included here is that if this was a new character that was not in the previous survey, possession of one or more mounts, using a level jump potion. All of this information basically gives you a more accurate representation of if that character in particular is an active character or just, an alt or a gold seller, for example, right? So to have it come down to basically having 1,100,000 active characters is really pretty good. Considering back in Stormblood, I think the number only ever reached about 660k. I could be wrong, but it was about that, I think. That's a really significant increase, and they should be really proud of that, and it's only going to get bigger, right? So the Shadowbringers hype is very real. Now, there's some other statistics on this lucky Bancho data that you might want to go through on the link I'll provide in the description. Simply using it in Chrome or something, you can auto-translate a website like I'm doing here. But some of the data that I want to talk about is quite interesting. So firstly, let's talk about names. And this basically works off of how many characters are named the same thing, and they've split this into gender. So firstly, the most popular female character's name in the entirety of the game of current active characters for all three regions, Japan, NA and EU, is actually Luna, believe it or not. After that, the second place onwards sort of varies a little bit, but a lot of these names actually reoccur. But obviously the Final Fantasy XV hype was probably enough to make people create characters called Luna or change their name to Luna, which is really quite interesting, the impact it had on our game. Unless I'm completely missing another Luna in existence that they were probably referencing, I'm not really sure. And then you have things like titles for a first name such as Lady, and things like Yui, Yuki, Alice, Rin, etc. These are all very popular names from popular culture. So for the male characters, it's actually quite different. In proportion, there's a lot more Lord, Sir, King, Mr, lots of prefaces to an actual last name. So instead of a person creating a character called John Smith, it seems that the majority of people on NA and EU would rather lean towards giving that first name to a Mr or a title, and then a primary name in the surname slot, which is quite interesting because if we look at the Japanese data, that doesn't really happen. Hiro, Rei, Ren, Leon, Kuro, Sora, Jack, Haru, onwards. So obviously these are pop culture names, but it is really interesting to see the differences between the West and the East in terms of naming convention trends. So what other things can we get from this data other than just names? Well, obviously we've got a decent population average, but the one that most people will find quite interesting is this section on Eureka. This bit shows that 41 to 49% on Japanese servers cleared Baldessian Arsenal inside Eureka Hydatos from all of those who reached the level cap of 60, which is the prerequisite to get in there in the first place, and obviously finishing that story. However, on Europe and North America, 28% is the highest on Primal and Chaos, with only 17% of people on Crystal actually clearing Baldessian Arsenal. So for the most part, you can say roughly just under half of the population of Japanese active characters at maximum level have cleared Baldessian Arsenal. So whether that's due to there being more successful PUG instances rather than the Western culture of basically having these pre-made set up and shouting at people when they join instead of being part of your pre-made, is probably one of the reasons why this data is skewed this direction. But it's very interesting to see how much more successful Baldessian Arsenal was as a concept to Japanese audiences. And you have to remember, if a third-party website can collate this information, then you can be sure that this is the sort of information that Square Enix themselves will have in front of them on the desk at all time. And obviously they cater the creation of content to some of these trends and of course feedback as well. But yeah, I'll leave that with you in the description as a link to this article. So Lucky Bancho does this sort of census idea every year or so it really gives you a good representation of how much growth this game is getting. If Shadowbringers receives an overwhelmingly positive review from the masses, then this is likely going to be a massive turning point in the sort of budget that Final Fantasy gets for future installments, and that's all the hype. Either way, like I say, go check this out yourself. Thank you kindly for watching. I thought this was quite interesting to share, and I'll see you all next time.